Welcome back. This is the Dumpster Fire Project. I'm Eric Scramlin, and as always, I'm joined by legendary podcast host Murray Swash. Tonight, on our episode, we have the co-owner of the REI Bookkeepers, specializing in bookkeeping for real estate investors. He's also the co-host of his own podcast, the REI Bookkeepers. He is Matt Beans. Matt, welcome to the Dumpster Fire Project.
What is up, gentlemen? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We were just talking before we got started here. This is one of the first episodes that we haven't had any technical difficulties getting started. So let's see if we can set a record here tonight. Murray, what do you think?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Actually,
isn't it weird sometimes though? Like when there aren't difficulties, you're like, what do we do?
Yeah, we started on time, no difficulties. We're gonna have to change the name of the podcast. It's no longer the Dumpster Fire Project. It's like spit polished and perfect.
For our regular listeners out there, all 7 of you that watched our live episode, which is our last
shout out to those 7.
Yeah, they are. I tell you,
we love those 7
guys. We did a live episode right the day after Christmas, and it was a true dumpster fire with the difficulties, but we got through it. It was actually really good. Thankful we had a big turnout. But anyway, we're already getting off track here tonight. So Matt,
reel it back in, Eric.
Tell us about the REI Bookkeepers.
Cool. So the REI Bookkeepers, it's super straightforward. REI stands for real estate investment or real estate investor. And so we strictly do bookkeeping for real estate investors, whether they're buying and selling houses, just like HGTV, they're taking, the dumpster and turn it into the clean, polished, beautiful house. Or, sometimes they're wholesaling. Sometimes they're doing a little bit more creative finance deals. Some guys are hard money. We've got a title company that one of our investor owns. So if you're a real estate investor, we'd love to do your books.
Where can we find you? Do you guys, I know you got a really nice website. Are you guys on social media and stuff like that too?
I'm not proud of our social media presence because we're so focused on doing the job and the business, and every week it's like, oh, we need to post more, and we never actually end up doing it yet because we're putting our clients first. But it is the REI Bookkeepers on Instagram, TikTok, I think Facebook as well. We have the REI Bookkeepers Facebook page. So reach out to us, give us a follow, and let's connect.
Yeah. And you guys do a podcast. You have I don't know if it's a co-owner or partner that you work with, but you guys do a podcast too, right?
Yeah, we've recorded a few episodes, again, kind of on the slacking bus on that one. We jumped from, we pretty much doubled our client base in a very short period of time. And so that demanded a lot of attention and catching up. And, with tax season coming up and from now until April plus the extensions, now we're having people reach out to us, new clients. Hey, we need to catch up all of our books for 2020. And so we go and it's a lot of work, but we're slacking on the podcast.
Well, no, I can understand that. I didn't even think about that. So yeah, we're in January right now, first week, or pretty much just getting the second week. So you guys, is this a busy time of the year for you?
Incredibly busy. We met with a CPA. I think we're on 2 other meetings with clients, and I've got messages still coming in this evening.
That's one of the things we talk about on here is, you start your own business or, your own thing to get freedom, financial freedom, create more meaning in your life. But sometimes you forget about all the hard work that goes into it. You're probably going to be up long after we're done here tonight, working on stuff. I think some people forget about that. I certainly did when I got started.
Yeah, it's starting your own business is interesting because everything you want goes the opposite direction at first. You want more time, you put more time in. You want more money, you spend a bunch more money. Everything you want ends up going backwards before it goes forward.
Yeah.
Or maybe when it does go forward, it like you said, it doubles almost overnight and you're just not prepared. You're caught off guard. And you're like, oh man, I mean, it's a good problem, but it's still a problem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. If I doubled my customer base, I'd have 4 clients. So come on, let's double that thing.
We'll double it.
So, I'm curious. I really want to dive into your story about how you started the business. Were you in the real estate investor business before you got into this, or how did you get into starting this company?
Yeah, specifically too around like the bookkeeping part of it. That seems like not only real estate but bookkeeping. It's a really finite niche that you got into. So curious to hear that.
Yeah, so we definitely got to a fork in the road. I'm a younger dude. I'm 25. So straight out of high school / college, I got into the welding industry. I was a welder, welding inspections, doing that whole thing. Decided I wanted to get into sales and business. Ended up moving from my small town down here to Phoenix, Arizona. And within about 2 years, I got connected with a real estate investment company down here who primarily flipped houses and they wholesaled. So a flip, you actually buy the house, you pay your contractors, you demo the house, you put nice finishes in, and then you sell it for more than you buy it for. And then a wholesale is you pretty much contract a property, and then before you close on that property, you find an end buyer. So let's say you buy a property for $100,000, you find an investor that wants to buy it for like 110 because they can still flip it for like 200, and so you just make a quick 10 grand. So that's wholesaling. And so those are the two primary investment strategies that they had. And with them, there's two parts to wholesaling. There's acquisitions, which is, hey, we need to buy properties, right? We need to get them under contract. And then there's dispositions, meaning we need to sell the property so we can make that $10,000 spread. I started out on acquisitions and buying the properties, negotiating with sellers, finding motivated sellers, all of that. And then once I got the contracts, I was like, hey, who's selling these things? And they're like, oh, well, our dispo guy just left last week. And I was like, so who's selling these things? And it ended up nobody was selling them because the dude left. So I stepped up and I started selling the properties. After about a year of that, buying and selling properties for them, I actually jumped into doing my own flip while I was still with them. And long story short, flipped a few houses last year, and the bookkeeper / executive assistant for them, also my now business partner. Her name is Catherine, and she's amazing. She's also my girlfriend, so I have nothing but nice things to say about her.
Of course. Yeah.
She said, Matt, I love the bookkeeping, but everything else sucks in this job. And I was like, well, let's start a bookkeeping business for real estate investors, right? Because I had known a bunch of real estate investors because I sold properties to them. I was still flipping houses. I still had their contact information. And so pretty much within 30 days, we had about 6 clients. And so when I say our business doubled, it didn't double too much. It's not a huge growth, but we're up to 11, 12 clients now.
Yeah.
And
it's growth.
Yeah, it's growth, and we're doing well. We're going to be looking for some sales guys and some bookkeepers to add onto the team soon because we're growing. We hit our 6-month goal in like 90 days.
Nice. So, it sounds like this was kind of like an opportunity that came up, and you guys said, there's a niche for this, and you jumped into it. What was the process like when you said, okay, let's start this company and do it? Did you kind of test the waters out, or did you just say, let's go, let's do this?
A little bit of both. So she was already doing bookkeeping for one other real estate investor. And so we already had our first client was already on board, and, we were already getting paid by them. And, I'm a talker. I'm a guy that, I will literally just call some random friend or whoever at 6:30 p.m. and just chat. And so I was just talking to some of these guys, and I was like, yeah, I think we're going to start a bookkeeping business for real estate investors. And without even trying, next thing I know, I have 4 people that they're like, yeah, I actually need a bookkeeper. And I was like, okay, well, we'll do it. And so it became too much. The plan was that she would quit her job in 6 months. And within 30 days, she left because we had enough clients and income to support that. So it was really neat.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the power of networking right there. I mean, just calling friends and talking, you're able to go from 6 months to 30 days. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, networking is huge. Massive.
Yeah,
One of
I'm
the
a firm believer in that as well.
Yeah, and one of the reasons when I talked to Murray, we had our conversation, I thought that'd be awesome to have you on here because Murray and I are always talking about get out there and follow your passion, start that business, but you forget about like stuff like you gotta keep track of your books. We had a guy that started a coffee shop come on here, and he's like, we opened up the first day and didn't have any money in the cash register, just totally forgot about it. And he talked about the bookkeeper was like, he said his number one piece of advice was not follow your passion or do all stuff. It was get a good bookkeeper and keep track of that stuff. It's huge. So I know that you're kind of specifically in the real estate investor business, but what would you say to folks about like if any kind of business, what is the importance of having a good bookkeeper? Why do you need to do that stuff?
Yeah, I would say it's massive. And I'm going to take a few steps back from that actually. And a bookkeeper is completely useless if you're not clear on your goals, right? So if you're just like, you also need to ask yourself why you're in business, right? For us, yes, it's lifestyle, but it is also to have the time freedom and the financial freedom. So that requires a lot more. Like you don't just get clients and they're just taken care of without anybody taking care of them. So you need to be aware of your systems and processes and how clients are dealt with and your customer service. And so I'm going to go around your question. I'm going to come back to it. So we actually meet, we have, this seems like a lot, but we have 6 hours out of our week where we meet specifically to work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, that's key.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we figured out what our high impact areas are. Like what are the things that, really create this business? And there are 8 areas. And we plan on doing an hour for each one, but because we're still so small, some of them we kind of combined. And then we threw in an hour for training because I do think it's important for both of us to train each other, like on our different skills, because we do have different skills. Now, getting clear on what your goal is. If your goal is to get into business is just to follow your passion, and I say this jokingly, but this is truly the case for some people. Maybe you have a sugar mama or a sugar daddy that's making all the money and you start your business so you can, I'm going to use the example because there's a guitar in the background, but you start the business so you can go play the guitar on stage every Saturday night and you just want to have a good time every Saturday night. If that's your goal, you don't need a bookkeeper, right? But if the goal is to make money and it's, hey, I want to quit my job. I don't want to have to worry about the stress of being on a W-2 and collecting a paycheck every week. And, I need this business to provide enough financial resources to live my personal life as well. Then you really need a bookkeeper because not only are they going to track, it's easy to open up your phone on your Wells Fargo app or your Chase app and say, oh, there's money in the bank or there's not money in the bank. But when you have a bookkeeper telling you, hey, like for us, we have to get 1099 employees, or, we have to 1099 our employees and get W-9s from them. Hey, these are the list of vendors you need W-9s from in order for me to give you a 1099. So that way you can not have to pay taxes on those people. Hey, these are your accurate profit and loss because you sold, $250,000 worth of product, but your net income that you take home at the end of the day to go pay your bills and live your personal life was only 20 grand. Well, shoot, what did I spend all this money on? And if you're just a bank account with transactions and receipts in a shoebox or, some in your email and some here and some there, and it's not organized in one clear, concise area where you can look at a one-page report, and you're like, oh, I spent, $100,000 on marketing and the product cost was this and, travel costs were this. And, maybe we did spend a little bit too much here on meals and entertainment and, really being able to run your business. I know you guys kind of tailor towards creators, but you're not in this just to create things. Like you're running a business. Like,
Yep.
Right now, a lot of your listeners, all 7 of them might shout out to those 7 again. I love them. They, you're in this to do the creative process and come up with really neat things. And I understand that because coming from the welding industry, I built actually some really cool sculptures and different welding art, and I love every part of it. And even in my bookkeeping business, we're coming up with creative marketing ideas, and I completely understand the creative process. But as a creator, you also need to understand the heavy burden of running a business. Right now, you might be a 1 or 2 man show, but eventually somebody's going to rely on you to put food in their mouth and pay their mortgage and feed their kids, because you made a promise to them that you're going to employ them so that way you can grow your business and reach your goals, and you're going to have to provide for them as well. So I think that's a huge thing for people to realize, is you're not just going out to do this to have fun. Like, business is business, and you need to take care of business, and having a bookkeeper makes it a lot easier, because if you guys are like me, doing the bookkeeping freaking sucks. We're never going to do it. We're never going to sit down. We're never going to categorize our expenses. We're never going to track our receipts. We're just never going to do that. And so hiring that bookkeeper for literally a few $100s a month will completely change the trajectory of your success or failure.
I think it's something that scares a lot of people that are thinking about starting a business. I know about 10 years ago when I graduated law school, in Michigan, the recession hit and I could not find a job. So out of sheer necessity, it's either, starve, or I had to start my own practice. And then I knew I could practice law. I knew I could compete in the courtroom. I was terrified about how am I going to keep track of my finances, because I'm terrible at math. I didn't do well in tax law. Like, how am I going to keep track? That was my number one thing that I was afraid of. And even now, starting my side hustle, as it's starting to grow, I'm getting income coming in from it that I want to invest into marketing. And I'm like, how do I keep track of this? How do I figure out if this stuff is working? So I think that's kind of like where you guys come in, and you can track all that stuff and take that burden off the business owner, because I think it's terrifying for a lot of people, except Murray. Like, he knows everything.
And that's the thing. I tend to forget how scary it is for others. Just, it's a world that I've lived in, just being in the development side, where you're always thinking about, okay, if I'm making this, even if it is my passion or whatever it is, like you said, there's still a business to be ran here. There's people that depend on you. That to me, that's more scary than, just me sink or swim. It's okay, if there's other people that are depending on me now, I really need to have it together. So for me, it was, I tend to forget about how scary it can be for others, because it was just always part of my background. And then that's why I was excited to have you on here, because it reminded me that I was listening to this podcast, and at one point they talked about how important it is to understand your P&L and, have a dashboard. And for me, I understood it all, but they were explaining how it can be like almost like a brand new science to some people. I was like, wow, like that was really eye-opening. Like, yeah, struggle.
Absolutely. And I would say, not bookkeeping specifically, but because that is our topic, just be aware, like have the self-awareness to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. If you're like Eric and you're scared of doing the books, like hire somebody for a few $100 to do it. If you're like Murray and like, hey man, this is my strength, I want to do this, do it, because you're going to have so many facets of your business that as you grow, you need to, I think this was hard for me, and I also believe it's hard for other people, is we think that we're the best at everything, right? Like, this is my business. This is my baby. This is my vision. Nobody else can create it the way that I see it.
That's why we want to do it, because we're tired of bosses telling us to do it some other way. We're like, we know how to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
He does know everything, though. He does. So, by the way.
No. But you have to be like incredibly humble, though. You have to know when you don't know something and ask for help. Otherwise, you will sink yourself.
Absolutely. And that's where I was going with that, is if you're not good at point blank, if you're not good at bookkeeping or the books, don't do it. Hire a third party bookkeeper. There's a million of them.
Yeah, for sure. That's good advice.
So with that, are there rules or regulations around you being able to just do the books in your state, or can anybody reach out to you?
Yeah, we do bookkeeping in all 50 states.
Okay.
We're actually right now doing some bookkeeping for an investor that's developing down in Mexico. So I guess we're international too.
Nice.
Very good. Very good. So how far along are you with it? Sounds like it's still fairly new.
Mhm.
How far along are you? And I'm going to steal your question, Murray. We always talk about. We ask people what
Rocky
have been.
question.
Yeah, what's some of the growing pains? What are some challenges that you face? I know you're kind of early on, but it sounds like it's been pretty successful so far. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
you guys are catching me at about 4 months deep, 4 to 6 months, depending on how you look at the timeline. So very new. This is like I still got the water behind my ears from filling out the LLC paperwork.
Okay.
nice.
But this is where you're making your millions. That's what I've heard some people say before. It's when you're not actually just sitting there watching the money come in. This is when you're putting in all the hard time, all the late nights. It's like this is really when you're building that business. And then once it grows and you start to automate more and more, it just becomes easier. But now is when you put the time in to actually make that money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to remind myself that every day because, like, yeah, we have, a handful of clients. And, when you look at the grand scheme of things, yes, we're getting traction relatively quickly. But when you when you have the big vision and the big goal, and then you look at the bank account and you're like, man, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. And you wake up every single day. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And it's like, it's really easy to doubt yourself and like, am I really cut out for this? Is this for me? Am I, you start asking yourself all these different questions because, you don't know what tomorrow brings. You have this plan and you have this idea, but then, you like I've completely avoided Facebook except for recently because I've had to, I also have my real estate investment business and I pick up clients on Facebook through different Facebook groups. But I literally hired a VA to go on Facebook and post stuff for me because it's like, I don't want to see things about the pandemic or the election or how terrible this and that's going or how successful Tesla's doing and, get that and be like, why am I not Elon Musk? Like, how can I become the richest man in the world? You know what I mean? Like you start to, and these small things just tend to creep into your brain. And like, I'm so keen on protecting my mindset and just keeping steadfast on those goals, walking the straight line, and just doing what it takes, regardless of the results that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about how you have to be incredibly headstrong when you go into something like this. Just be mindful, make sure you're in a good spot. Because if you have that going for you, then you're going to do good quality work. You're going to be efficient. You always want to have a little bit of that competitive edge there. So you do want to see some stuff, but maybe don't shoot for, like the Tesla level straight out of the gates. Let's build up to that.
Yeah, let's build up to that. But I want to hit on something about that though, is like, I talk about that fear and that, I guess you could call it a little bit of anxiety or the unsureness or, whatever those emotions are that come up. A lot of people feel those, and that's, why don't you just quit your job and start that business you've been talking about for the last 10 years? Well, I'm scared. I don't know if it'll work. When I feel those things, I consciously force myself to do it because to me, that's not a signal of don't do it. That's a signal of you need to do it. I'm going to get a little bit, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but I'd consider myself a Christian. And so I firmly believe in, good and bad, the good forces and the evil forces. And I don't think that the forces of Satan or the forces of evil are strictly meth, strictly pornography, strictly, like lying. Like they're not those clearly bad things, right? Like those are clearly bad. But it's the seduction of, nah, you can't do it. You're scared. Right? It's those little voices in your head that stop because you have this vision of your potential and you only have that vision because God created that vision for you and for your life because you're the one having it. And so the things that are going to stop you are those feelings of self-doubt, those thoughts of self-doubt, those thoughts of fear, and those fear come from scarcity and from, in my opinion, an evil place and a force that's opposing that big vision and that big potential. And so, when I feel that fear and anxiety and whatever, I know it's like, I got to fight this and just move forward and just push past the roadblock and make it happen.
Yeah, I think you kind of read our mind. That's exactly the question we were going to ask, is how you deal with that. I think it's common. I know me personally, I have the day job. It's a good job. It's comfortable. I do my side hustle because I'm looking at long term. I got extremely burnout as a prosecutor. I don't want to spend long term in the courtroom dealing with how stressful the practice of law is. So I started a training business for law enforcement and prosecutors, which there's a need for. But I had the same thing. And I'm about a year and a half into it as just a side hustle. And a lot of times I go to sleep at night and I can't sleep because I'm thinking like, this is not going to work. Like, how the hell are you going to scale this up to replace what you're making in the day job? I'm not trying to get rich. I'm just trying to make what I make, in the day job, which isn't a ton, but it's enough to live a, lower class lifestyle. So yeah, and I don't know, I've dealt with it a lot of different ways. And we've actually, Murray and I've done podcasts where we spend like a half an hour talking about how we deal with that stuff. I really like you kind of your advice. It sounds like you're really good at filtering out the noise, staying focused, which is something that I'm terrible at, and just kind of keeping your eye on the prize. So you said you're about 4 or 5 months in. Is that kind of how you've done it now? Just stay focused on what you're doing, keep building the thing.
Yeah. And like you guys are a little bit older than I am. I don't know if you have kids or are married or anything, but the way I look at it is I have the blessing that, I'm young. I have nothing to lose. I have, a few cars. I have my apartment, and I've got a little bit of money. But at the end of the day, the money I have compared to the opportunities and the potential that's out there in the world is, very little. So, just go for it. Like, I can always go back. Like, you can always go back and go be a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Murray can always go back and do the development. I can always go back and be a welder or a sales guy or, a project manager. And I don't know if you have any young listeners, or maybe in the future you're going to be like, hey, go back and listen to this episode. But I dropped out of college my first year. I changed my degree 7 times. And, when I looked at it from a financial perspective, I said, this degree is going to cost me $100,000 if I continue. I can go lose $100,000 in the real world with the opportunity to actually make money. So worst case scenario is I find myself $100,000 in debt. And that was my trajectory anyways. So let's go.
I do the same thing. I walk around with my law degree and I say, $250,000. Who wants to buy it? How much it cost me? You want it?
You want it? Who wants it?
Yeah, I know what you mean. We've talked about that. I get in trouble sometimes at my day job when we have young interns because I try to break against the norm of you got to go to college to get a good job. I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think that's true at all. I think it's like the racket's almost up with the colleges, charging all this money for these useless degrees. I think you starting off young is awesome. We've talked about that on here before because you're right. Like, I'm not getting any younger. I don't think we're too old dudes yet, Murray, but we're in our 30s, and it is harder. When I was in my 20s and I started my private practice, I was living at my mom's house and I literally had nothing to lose. But now, we got this house. My wife bought a new car. If I quit and do this and it doesn't work, I'm gonna be sleeping in the podcast studios here. So it is a good idea. I think it's good advice. When you're younger, it gets harder the older you get. Not that we discourage it, but it definitely does get a little bit harder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think our message has been, if you want to go to college, that's fine. Some people are studious like that, but that's all they've heard. They've never heard there's other options. Just think all of them through. Like, where do you feel naturally, pulled to? Where do you want to go? And if nothing else, okay, try that for a year. And if something doesn't happen, okay, you can go to college. I mean, there's, even adults go to college. I know some people worry about missing out on the opportunity of the college experience. Like, fine, then try whatever you really want to do. Try it for a little while. And if it ends up not being that, you can still go to college and still be within that, your age group and have that college experience. But just make sure you keep opportunities open.
Every university in this country will happily take your money regardless of how old you are.
Yeah, for sure.
I've oftentimes thought about going back to college. What do you think, Murray?
I had enough fun the first time around.
Maybe. I like that commercial with Bosworth when they talk about going back to college. He's like, where do I sign up? By the way, Murray, I'm officially not going to be in charge of the schedule anymore because why did I schedule this podcast during the time of the national championship game?
Oh, is it? I have no idea. No,
Yeah, I saw it come out. I was like, man, I'm terrible at scheduling.
it's all right.
That's awesome.
No one's listening right now because we're recording it, so
Yeah.
they'll be watching the game now, and they can listen to this in a week or so.
Yeah.
Release
Yeah,
it.
you can record it and watch it too.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, I just thought of this question. One of the things that I'm looking at, because I've made just enough money to start growing my side hustle. And I want to put most of the money I've made into marketing. You know, I'm kind of following the Gary Vee method of, you know, using social media to your advantage. But I'm trying to figure out, you know, if I'm going to put money into like YouTube ads and Facebook ads, I want to be able to track it. Is that something that a good bookkeeper can do? Like kind of look and say, okay, look, kind of the analytics portion, you put this kind of money into the ad and this is what you got out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, they have a really good back end for how much money you spend on each ad. The trick for you is going to be implementing a CRM in order to know, you know, let's say you spend $2,000 on marketing. Of that $2,000, 2,000 people click on your, or let's do 1,000 people click on your, your little ad. And then of those 1,000 people, 100 inquire. And of those 100, 10 you actually meet with, have a phone call with, DM a little bit with, whatever the case is. And of those 10, one signs up, right? You're going to want a CRM for that. The bookkeeper is going to really be helpful for, hey, you spent this much on this campaign, this much on this campaign. You spent this much with YouTube. You spent this much with Facebook. You spent this much with MySpace. You spent this much with Google Ads. That's what they're going to be really useful for.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was curious about, because in Murray and I, even for the podcast, we've kind of experimented a little bit with playing around with different ads, and we get various results. But I really want to get to the point to kind of track it. So it sounds, Murray's an expert with CRM. It's kind of new to me. I've been just kind of getting into it, and I can see the benefits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you speak on that, Murray. That's your area.
Yeah, and I won't dive too far into it because that's a whole nother podcast or two. But yeah, it's amazing how wide you cast your net. And at the end of the day, like getting a 3% conversion rate is
that's huge
success. And it's like, what? It's only 3%. You're like, you have to do all this work in this. But I mean, there's tools out there that will help get you there. You just gotta, choose one. And probably the best advice I can give on that, again, without diving too deep, is just pick which one you're going to go after, get good at it, and stick with it. There's too many options out there. You can drown yourself in all the little details. So just find where your audience is at, find where your customers are living, and then find the tool that works best to go reach out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about house flipping, because we know that that's a major side hustle. I don't know a lot about it. Being an attorney and kind of possibly working in the real estate field at some point in my career, I find it fascinating, but we've never had someone on here that's familiar with that field. Is that I don't know, just tell us about it. What's your thoughts on that?
House flipping is pretty fun. Just make sure, when you hear I've made $30,000 on a house flip, and you hear that and you're like, wow, that's so crazy. You're 25, made 30 grand on a house flip on a side hustle. It's like, yeah, that 30 grand cost me, 4 months of my life. So, what's 30 grand over 4 months? Just like anything, in my opinion, in order to make real money, you've got to do it at scale. So 30 grand in 4 months is, it's like you could get a job and make that much money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But to keep the vision of, that was year one. So year one, we make 30 grand per house flip, and we did a handful. Well, maybe by year 2, 3, or 4, now that I've proven that I know what I'm doing, now that I've proven that every house flip I've done is successful, maybe I can raise a little bit of money. Now I can do 4 or 5, 3 or 4 house flips at a time, and, pop 20 to 30 grand on each one. Now you're talking about real money rather than just this one-off, $30,000 profit. But again, be prepared for it, because it's so easy to scroll on Facebook and watch the snow come down in Michigan and laugh about it. It's so easy to sit on your couch and watch the HGTV, 30-minute freaking TV show and like, wow, that looks so cool. But when you start running into freaking termites and plumbing issues and digging up foundations, and then you sell the house and there are appliance issues, and the pandemic hits and materials are 2 weeks backlogged, so now you're holding on to this freaking house for 2 more weeks. I sound a little bit pessimistic about it, but I think there's so much fluff and so much like sexiness around flipping houses that not enough people talk about the real work that goes into it.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at, because it seems like it's such a popular side hustle, and I think that's people look at TV and they like, this looks easy. In 30 minutes, they flipped 3 houses.
They made 60 grand.
Where do I sign up for this? It's the same thing I thought about, like Airbnb. I'm like, well, that's a good side hustle too. New Year's, we were in kind of a touristy area, and we had some friends join us, and they had an Airbnb, and it's New Year's Day, like 10 in the morning. They locked themselves in. So now they got to figure out get a hold of the guy that owns it. So here's this guy probably on New Year's Day trying to relax, and he's
probably
got this
hungover.
Yeah. I wasn't, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, but that dude probably was.
But yeah, and it was this major ordeal. They had to bring this kid over, and he like cuts his hand on the glass because he doesn't know how to get in. He like tries to break the window and stuff. It's disaster. A lot of that stuff you don't think about when you decide to do a side hustle. I think you do. You need to consider that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I would say if you're thinking about going in any business, whether it's a side hustle, your full-time gig, whatever, obviously have, like we've talked about multiple times, that big vision and that big dream. What are the benefits of doing this? Like, what are the benefits of, training security guards or, flipping a house or whatever? There are multiple benefits to all of this. What are the downfalls? What are the things that can get in our way? What are problems that we're going to have to deal with? And then, am I willing to put up with those things in order to get this?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. I've even heard of some like mental conditioning where when you're thinking about that, literally like close your eyes and make it like come to life and step yourself through it. So that way you know how to react. And if that ever does happen, you even feel more prepared too, because you're like, well, I've already kind of figured it out in my head how I would react to this, but you've already gone through the emotions and you're just that much more prepared. And okay, if the worst does happen, I'll still survive.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's a good point. And I've done that. This is weird, but when I was in college, I had this really weird fear of my mom dying when I was in college. And so I've in my head, my mom's died like 100 times, and I've dealt with it 100 different times. And to do that in your business, I think that's a really good idea. That's smart. I like that.
Murray's a smart guy. That's why
Murray is a smart guy. I like this guy. I like Murray.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I'm trying.
But on mental conditioning, we actually, I'm huge on mental conditioning. I actually fast once a week. I sit in a cold bath, probably 4 or 5 days a week for 3 minutes at 35 to 40 degrees, and stick to a pretty strict meal plan along with working out 3 times a week. So I love the whole mental conditioning side of this.
Yeah, I always heard that cold showers are really good to like get the mind, everything triggering in the mind. But I was like, I live in Michigan. I'm cold all the time. So I was like, no, I'm taking a warm shower and then I'll be cold in other 23 hours out of the day.
No, listen, if you are, an arrogant, big, real man, go take a cold shower for a minute and, we'll see how that changes. You're in the shower. You're like, oh, that's cold.
Yeah, that's true. I do not every year. I've done it for this is my 3rd year now. Every January I do the dry January where no alcohol at all, strict diet meal plan. I'm trying to incorporate the intermittent fasting
Mhm.
into it. And it's amazing. Like I get all of my work done for the entire year in January and then I kind of fall off. And it's all, right now, if you watch the other podcasts, I'm distracted. I'm laser focused tonight.
Yeah, you're on it. I do
And-
the same. What is it? Sober October.
Yeah. Sober October, I feel is kind of like most people do that. I feel like dry January is for like the old people. Sober October, you know?
It's the Joe Rogan thing.
Yeah. That's kind of where I got it. I don't know why I decided to do it in January, but it's worked pretty well the last few years. And I think that is important because I'm joking, but I do get so much done. You know, when your mind is sharp, you got more energy and you can focus and you can take care of the mental aspect. So I think there's something to it.
Oh, there's definitely something to it.
All right, I got one for you that we've kind of asked in a roundabout way, but now that I figure our podcast is almost a year old, Murray, I'm going to ask it a little more direct and with a little more thought, because when we started this podcast, we kind of really like just go follow your passion. If you like baseball, go become a baseball announcer. But we kind of realized it's not realistic. Like I'm sure you didn't, when you were a kid, think I'm going to be a bookkeeper for real estate. That's my passion. But I think what happens is you find something that you really enjoy doing that gives you meaning, and then you become passionate about it. So with that in mind, we always kind of ask our guests, and you're starting early on, which is awesome. What advice would you give to some of our listeners? We have listeners that are doing side hustles, that are thinking about doing them. They're thinking about starting their own business, with that whole follow your passion but at the same time starting a successful business that you can make money off of. What would be your advice to those folks?
I wish you would ask me this in 10 years after I hope that I'm almost there and kind of close to success, because I'm nowhere near there now. But
I don't mean to interrupt you, but the reason why we did this podcast, we call it the Dumpster Fire Project. The original idea was to document our process, being
I love it.
Normal guys without a business background, and follow our process through the business. So like in 5 years from now, we go back and watch these early episodes, maybe, Murray's probably a billionaire. People are going to pay money.
I hope so. I hope Murray's a billionaire.
So with that in mind, in 10 years from now, if you look back at this, it'd be like, wow, that was my thought process back then. So right now, early on, how are you feeling about this?
I love it. So I have two guys in my head, or three guys in my head, that their voices are always just ringing in my head. Gary Vee says, follow your passion. David Meltzer says, become passionate about, what you do. Mm-hmm. And then Grant Cardone just says, whatever you do, just do it more, regardless if you love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And so they're all semi-contradicting. And I just think that there's no right or wrong way. And part of, I mentioned that I'm kind of removing myself from Facebook and, social media and the news and everything. Partially, yes, it's because I don't want all the distractions. But two, I've realized like most of the things that I say and I think are because they're so heavily influenced by that. Like I can't confidently say that I have my own framework of the world and like what Matt Beans truly believes, outside of a few topics that I've like really done my research in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got those guys, but for me, like my biggest thing isn't money. It's creating opportunity. And, like we mentioned that it's scarier having to feed other people than it is, having to feed yourself. Cause at the end of the day, I'm a dude. I could sleep under a bridge if I needed to. Like, I could eat food out of the dumpster out, behind Walmart if I needed to. Like, that's just, I don't know if that's part of being a dude, but that's part of who I am. But now when it comes to, hey, you have a girlfriend and then you have an employee and now you have 2 employees and now you have 10 employees. The thing that gets me excited isn't, oh, I have this big, huge business that's making a bunch of money. It's, I've had these clients that we started in 2020 when there was a national pandemic and they were flipping 2 or 3 houses a year. Now they're flipping 40 or 50 houses a year. and they're just absolutely crushing it, and seeing them grow. And then when I do hire my first employees, some are going to go, some are going to stay, but the ones that stay, I'm excited to see them go from, maybe a 20 something single mom or whatever to, happily married and maybe another kid or two, and, have their own house and cars and, whatever else that they have. And they're like on their feet, because that's what pushes me. And so my passion isn't necessarily houses or flipping houses or, buying and selling and flipping and doing the bookkeeping. It's how can I help people get where they're going and create a mutual benefiting, opportunity. That's my passion. And so when you say follow your passion, like, I can't tell you, I've probably spent thousands and thousands of nights. What am I passionate about? And it's like, I'm not passionate about any instruments. I'm not passionate about any sports. Like, yeah, I'll go watch some UFC or, some boxing. I'm not really passionate about traveling because, in my opinion, traveling sucks a little bit. Like, you're dealing with flight attendants and babies crying and, delays and all this stuff. Like, going and experiencing new cultures is fun. But at what point, if I've asked myself, if you have $1 billion in the bank account, like, you have nothing to worry about financially. You have your own jet, you have all the houses, you have all the cars you ever wanted. What would you do? The natural answer for me is I'd go travel. But then, Murray, like we were just talking about, I played that scenario over and over in my head. And I was like, after about a year or so, like, that would kind of get boring. Like, just traveling, going to see this hotel, eating these eggs Benedict, having this prime rib, going scuba diving here. Like, it sounds fun and it would be fun. But after doing it over and over again, it's like, man, what's the purpose of all this? Like, what am I doing? And so really be clear on what you want to be passionate about. Like, for me, it's creating those mutually beneficial opportunities where we can both, or trifectively, or, however many angles we can hit on this thing, and all benefit together. And whatever that opportunity looks like or sounds like, that's what I'm going after.
Well done. Good answer.
Yeah, really well said.
I like it. No, I think that's great. It's not it's not a right or wrong answer. We like to ask that to everybody. We've had some people come on here and are like, just do it. Just do it. We've had other people that say you don't want to regret, do it. We've other people say, take your time, research it. It's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I agree. It's, I'm passionate about a lot of things. Not so good at playing that guitar back there. Not going to make any money off it. Murray and I already tried, didn't play. So I know, even though I'm passionate about it, that's not an option. And when I was a kid, I didn't say, I would like to train prosecutors how to do jury trials when I grow up. But that's something that I grew into and fell in love with. And that's in a way to make a little bit of money. So I think it's good advice. Murray, I can't believe this. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I'm going to add to that. What's really interesting is I consider all these little side hustles and businesses rabbit holes. You're just going deeper down the rabbit hole. Yeah. And the deeper you go, the more opportunities and niches that you're going to see.
That's true.
I definitely knew at 16, 17, I wanted to be a real estate investor. I knew that without a shadow of a doubt. I didn't know that there would be an opportunity to do real estate investment bookkeeping. And I'm sure in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there are going to be other opportunities that I didn't know that even existed, let alone that I wanted to do them. So I would encourage anybody that's, should I follow my passion? There's more to this thing than you realize, whatever it is. And as you commit more time and more money and more resources to it, you're going to see different trends. You're going to see more opportunities. You're going to analyze it more, whether that's purposefully or subconsciously. And you're going to see other opportunities that might excite you a little bit more than maybe what originally got you started.
Yep, that's true. Same thing. My wife always tells me, because I work on the side hustle, but then I see these other opportunities. I'm like, I wonder, maybe I could try this. She's like, you can't do all this stuff. Like, just pick something. You're not even doing well at this one. It's easy, like you said, to go down the rabbit hole. And I think sometimes you gotta stay focused. I have to ask, these entire episode, our listeners have probably been watching, and they've been looking in the background back there, and they want to know, are you also your own security? because it looks like you have a Remington 870 back there. Do you do your own security?
There are a few. You got to keep yourself safe, right?
Yeah, I had to bring it up because you could kind of see it back there,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I got my Vortex hat on.
It's
And,
actually, I got a crazy story for you guys. So we're in an apartment right now. We're just getting started. We'll be buying a house. We're almost pre-qualified. Like, there's like two things we have to do, and we're pre-qualified, and we're buying a house by March. But anyways, so in our apartment, we're on the third floor because I think I don't want to be on the first floor because I don't want people walking by and
Right.
like can just like look in your window. Like, that's too weird for me. And I didn't want to be on the second floor because I don't want the assholes upstairs bouncing on my ceiling. So I was like, I'll be the asshole on the third floor.
Yeah.
And so we're on the third floor. Man, one day it's like 2:30 in the morning and we hear like literal grenades going off, like boom, boom, boom. And these dogs barking and all these police yelling and all this stuff. And I was like, I literally like levitated out of bed, flew, like grabbed the gun, flew to the door, like looked through the peephole, like ready to like go to war. And I see 4 SWAT team members outside my door with the canines facing down the hall. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And I found out the next morning, some dude in our apartment was like dealing guns and drugs. And they literally blew his door off and threw 2 smoke grenades in there, flipped, like the whole place was a mess.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But yeah, I like to feel like I'm a tough guy and have a gun around, but I hope I never ever have to use it.
Right, for sure. You mentioned you were from a smaller town before you moved to Phoenix.
Yeah. Yep.
Where it comes from. The same way Murray and I grew up in a small town, and that's something that's always followed me. It's like one of those things, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. That type of thing is something that I want to have on me, but I don't really want to ever have to use.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you want to talk about it and feel like you're safe, but at the end of the day, you don't really ever want to have to execute on that.
Yeah. When I was a prosecutor, I was prosecuting a homicide case one time and get a call from the detective on the case, like 6 a.m, the guy that I trust a lot, and he's a little frantic. And he's telling me that he just talked to one of his confidential informants, and the guy that I'm prosecuting, it was gang related, has hired a hitman from El Paso to take me out and some of the witnesses on the case. So I was a little concerned, but at the time I was living on this remote ranch, in New Mexico that was like, it literally took the DirecTV guy like 3 days to find the place. And I was like, well, the hitman from El Paso is good at finding stuff. Good luck finding me. But no, I carried a 9mm in court with me for like 6 months. I got the judge to sign an order allowing me to carry it concealed. I'm like one of the only attorneys in like the history of Lee County to carry, while I'm in court carrying a concealed firearm. It was crazy. It's like one of those things that you never obviously never want to use, but I don't know. When did this turn into a gun podcast, Murray? Why did you let me go?
I don't know.
You're the one that brought it up. I knew you would. You're all I knew at some point it was coming up. Like, I'll talk about that guitar behind you all day.
Yeah. I'm done, Murray. It's crazy. Like a few minutes ago, because we said we were going to try to keep this around a half hour. I looked and we're like almost at an hour.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Kudos to Matt. He did a really good job. I mean, not only did we touch on the financial aspect, which we haven't really had many people on here with that kind of background and skill set. So that was good to hear. But you also touch on many other topics that we always like to come back to. So overall, we can't thank you enough. It was a really, really good podcast. A lot of things for our listeners to take in. So if you want to let them know one more time where they can find you, hopefully anyone needs any help, they can throw some business your way.
Yeah, it's just the REI Bookkeepers on Instagram or Facebook. And if you need a bookkeeper and it's not real estate investment related, still reach out. We've got we're building, or we have quite a network of bookkeepers and CPAs for various industries that we can refer you guys to. So while our ideal client is the real estate investor, like I said, we're here to create opportunity for everybody. So if I can send one of my referral businesses, and associates some business, and you guys can have a smoother running business with a good bookkeeper, I'm all about it.
Yeah, for sure. People that watch and listen to the podcast, reach out to Matt. The reason that we had him on here is because he fits into the theme that we preach on here. So, reach out and use that advice, because you got to have a bookkeeper. I've been through it. I'm really close to getting the point in my business where I'm going to have to get one as well. So, Matt, thanks a lot. I think one of the things that we really want to do, we're going to have you back on here and see how things progress, since we kind of got you early. Because I think you're going to blow up, especially when the economy starts to recover a little bit and things pick up. So we're going to keep in touch. And
let's do it. I would love that.
Sure.
We got to have you back on here to get an update, because I think it's been fascinating. So any closing words of advice before we shut it down?
At the end of the day, if you're scared to do it, go freaking do it.
Yes. There you go.
You heard it here first.
Guys, thank you so much. It's also, it's an honor on my part to, I feel like we're all three of us are in the same similar situation. We're all kind of getting started, getting some traction, and pushing through a lot of those early on roadblocks that come up. And not only would a follow-up podcast be beneficial to see where we're at, but I think seeing your guys' growth and kind of having the same dynamic and synergy and all of that in 6 months or a year from now would be fantastic.
Yeah. And also thanks for reaching out. That's to a testament to our growth, Murray. We usually reach out to people to bring them on as guests. Matt reached out to us, so we're getting out there. So we appreciate it. Loved having you on here. Everybody make sure you check out Matt and follow their stuff on social media. And while you're at it, why don't give us a like too, and follow us on your favorite podcast app.
If you guys found any value in this podcast, share it with 2 of your friends. Not just like a share on social media, but like text them the episode.
Yeah, help us out. We're not making any money. I'm spending a bunch. Murray, you're gonna.
So back to that bookkeeper, Eric.
You're gonna look at me like, "Oh, you're really in the hole here. I might want to shut this thing down." All right. Matt, thanks. Murray, we'll see you next time. That's it.